3 U.S. destroyers carrying 4,000 Marines are heading in the direction of Venezuela. According to the White House, the mission is to target drug cartels that traffic narcotics to the United States.
So you've probably heard that the US State Department has placed a $50 million bounty on the head of Venezuela's 7th president, Nicolas Maduro, allegedly for involvement in trafficking narcotics into the United States. As you also just saw, the situation is escalating into a potential war scenario, with US Navy destroyers heading toward Venezuelan waters, and Maduro reportedly mobilizing 4.5 million military reservists across the country to defend against a potential US invasion. Now, there are those who believe that Nicolas Maduro is actually the leader of a drug ring called El Cartel de los Soles, which Donald Trump is heroically trying to smash for the protection of the American people. Then there are others who believe that El Cartel de los Soles is a figment of the US imperial imagination as it seeks to manufacture consent for a military invasion of Venezuela, primarily to seize control of the world's largest oil reserves, among other resources. Now, for the record, I'm of the latter persuasion, but that's not important because my opinion is not important. What is important is what the facts say. And what do they say? Well, they say that while Mr. Trump rattles his sabers and tries to start a war in South America under the guise of trying to protect the American people from a narco-president, there is another president who has actual, well-documented links to the international drug trade, whom the Trump administration's Department of Justice is currently shielding and protecting in US federal courts right now at this moment. Meet this guy. Nigeria's president, Bola Tinubu, has an FBI file which is at least 2,500 pages long, according to the FBI itself. The bulk of this revolves around a 1993 drug trafficking investigation, spanning the cities of Gary, Indiana, and Chicago, Illinois, where Mr. Tinubu was identified as a kingpin figure in the heroin trade, importing heroin of up to 96% purity from Southeast Asia via Nigeria using a complex network of smugglers and couriers. Mr. Tinubu was actually the subject of a publicly viewable 1993 forfeiture order, where $460,000 was seized from his account, being, I quote, proceeds of narcotics trafficking. Now, very curiously, instead of Mr. Tinubu's story ending there as just another drug criminal, his name started popping up repeatedly in Nigerian politics just under a decade later. If you go to WikiLeaks and type in the search keyword Tinubu, you notice that after somehow becoming governor of Nigeria's Lagos state, his favorite pastime seemed to be talking to the US ambassador or the US consul general. I mean, a lot of conversations. Like political assets being regularly debriefed, kind of a lot. Eventually in 2022, with Mr. Tinubu's ducks aligning for a potential presidential run, yours truly decided to finally call bullshit and publish the story, which had been suppressed in Nigeria for close to 30 years. Shortly afterwards, yours truly teamed up with American FOIA activist Aaron Greenspan to file a Freedom of Information request and a federal FOIA lawsuit against the Department of Justice, the FBI, the DEA, the IRS, the State Department, and the CIA, requesting public release of their Tinubu records. If you're familiar with the name Pablo Noriega, it doesn't take a genius to work out that when a known drug trafficker becomes friendly with the US government and then gets into political office in a country that the US government considers useful, there is a 102% chance that he's being used as a US foreign intelligence asset, with a 2% margin of error. So this legal process, which began in October 2022, has been subjected to every kind of legalistic foot-dragging and courtroom gamesmanship in the book, with the agencies involved all claiming that privacy interests somehow trump any public interest in a disclosure about the criminal history of a serving president. Then eventually some of these documents were released by the FBI, only for them to be heavily redacted. Instead of the requested 2,500 pages of material, just over half of this number were released, detailing the 1993 cross-agency drug trafficking investigation. But all pages that mentioned Tinubu's name were taken out for national security. The DEA even said the following in a filing last November: the only relevant public interest that weighs into the calculus for the purposes of Exemption 7C is the citizens' right to be informed about what their government is up to, not what Tinubu was up to. In other words, yeah, blah 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 public servant, but this public servant belongs to us, and his records are none of your business. In the same filing, the CIA basically confirmed what was already visible to Stevie Wonder. It said, human sources can be expected to furnish information to the CIA only when they are confident the CIA can and will do everything in its power to prevent public disclosure of their cooperation. In the case of a person who has been cooperating with the CIA, official confirmation of that cooperation could cause the targets to take retaliatory action against that person or their family or their friends. As we speak, this case is still dragging on, with even Aaron Greenspan himself accusing his own government of deliberately delaying disclosure as a favor to Mr. Tinubu. Now, why in the world would they be doing that? If only the answer could have been a little more obvious. The point is, whether the so-called Cartel de los Soles actually exists or not is a pointless debate to have. Whether Nicolas Maduro is simply a socialist president that Washington doesn't like, or a Narco-Presidente with horns growing out of his head, isn't an issue that needs much argument. because there's documented history and an ongoing obvious comparison that shows that the US empire has absolutely no problem with drug dealers and narco-presidents, as long as they stay in line and do whatever they're told. If Venezuela's oil wealth belonged to ExxonMobil and Chevron instead of the Venezuelan people, Nicolas Maduro could get away with everything that Mr. Tinubu has got away with, including trying to execute children for protesting. And Donald Trump wouldn't be sending warships anywhere. Once you think of the empire as a global extortion racket, it all starts to make sense.